Well, guys, this is it. The Super Rugby Pacific 2025 playoffs are here. We're starting off with the qualifying round. Up first on Friday night, it's the Crusaders versus the Reds in Christchurch. At the moment, looks like it's going to be a pretty windy night with a low chance of some moisture. Nothing too drastic though. Looking at the lineups, probably the big news for the Crusaders is that Will Jordan is back. Other than that, it's pretty much a full strength team, excluding the guys who sort of had those season injuries, guys like Finlay Brewis. For the Reds, probably the biggest thing to note here compared to last week is that Felipe Delgunu comes off the bench, gets promoted to starting on the left wing. Not quite full strength for the Reds though, they are still missing some of their big guys like Salakai Lotto, no Matty Fezler, no Hodgman, no Deludis. Propping stocks a bit depleted for the Reds, might cost them later in the game at scrum time. And as for how this game's going to go, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that the Crusaders, they play with the least ball out of all the New Zealand teams. They've been forced to make the most tackles. I think part of this could be that they actually have the worst rate of 22 exits in the competition at 86%. Could be related to their halves who are a bit green. This has often led to them being stuck defending in their own half. That leads to penalties, which kind of compounds things. And I'm just sort of thinking about that game against the Highlanders a few weeks ago. Yeah, we've seen that happen a couple of times to the Crusaders. Happened against Moanas as well. They just end up stuck in their own half tackling. And look, they probably have an excellent defense. They concede at the lowest rate in their 22 out of anybody in the competition. And I mean, if you've been watching them, it shows. Like, they're just a really tough nut to crack on their line. And look, this keeps them alive and keeps them in games, but it's just the hardest way to play the game, right? Like, you want to have the ball in hand as much as you can, because I mean, attack, it's the best form of defense in this game, provided you have territory, of course. And once they get down the other end of the field, they are actually the most ruthless team. They have the highest 22 conversion rate with ball in hand at 56%. That is the highest in the competition by quite a mile. That is just an insane stat. That is incredibly ruthless. Another issue I think they have though, the Crusaders, is that they struggle a bit in the collision sometimes. They have the lowest gain line success out of all the New Zealand teams. And we kind of saw this against the Brumbies last week, right? There was a bit of a game of two halves there. In that first half, I was really impressed because they came out firing with their forwards. They were just dominating the collisions. They were getting quick ruck ball. And I was thinking, wow, they've seen what the problem is in this area of the game, and they've just addressed it for this, which is exactly what you need to do versus the Brumbies. But then in the second half, the Brumbies, they actually made the adjustment, right? They just started getting up off their line a little bit quicker, and that gave them the edge at collisions. And suddenly the worm turned against the Crusaders, right? The Brumbies really came back into that game in a big way. If they'd adapted a bit earlier, they probably would have won it, to be honest. And I won't say anything about that. That's every reason knock on that got missed. But yeah, really, for the Brumbies, it's going to be all about dominating that collision and just controlling possession, territory, and being patient in that Crusaders half. Like, you're not going to bust that defense wide open. You got to wear it down and just keep going until it cracks, and keep them out of your half, keep them out of your 22, because they're probably going to score a lot easier there than you are. So yeah, you're going to need to spend a lot more time in their 22 than they are in yours. And do the Reds have the tools and the capability to do this well? I mean, they showed versus the Blues that they've got the players to go head to head in a really physical game and dominate collisions, especially on defense. But it's a much different forward structure, right? Like the Crusaders, they play a little bit wider from the ruck. It's not so much that really around the corner type stuff from the Blues. They'll need to identify that and approach this game with a different plan. But yeah, they definitely do have players who can bring the sort of physicality that is required. If they can make those types of tackles, if they can win those collisions, I mean, they've got Fraser McWright. Like, he is such a powerful asset to have if you're making those defensive hits, because yeah, he can get into the ruck and make those turnovers and give you that crucial possession you're going to need. And if you want to dominate possession, I mean, you need to have a dominant set piece as well. And look, the red scrum is good, it's solid. The line out, not so much though. It has been a bit flaky at times, and we know the Crusaders can also pick apart a weak line out as well. That happens, this game could go south really fast for the Reds. I mentioned a bit earlier as well that those prop stocks are a bit depleted. So yeah, once those props come off the bench, the Crusaders could find an edge there as well. And yeah, again, if that happens, like, yeah, the Crusaders, they're going to be coming. So overall, I can see a way that the Reds could compete in this game, but it's a tall order, man. Like, I don't know if they have the wherewithal and the ability to execute a plan that they need at the level that they need in front of what's probably going to be a sold out and very parochial crowd. I think this game, I mean, you got to say it's in the Crusaders' hands, right? Like, if they can get the edge at set piece, or if they can get that go forward like they had in the first half against the Brumbies last week, or if they just get possession and get that territory in the Reds' half, like, the Reds have a good defense, but yeah, like the Crusaders, they're gonna be able to score, right? Like, they're so much more dangerous. Their ability to score is so much higher that, yeah, I don't think the Reds can stop them in Christchurch. So I'm going to say that the Crusaders break them in the second half and go on to win by 12 points. And after that, on the Saturday night, we have Chiefs versus the Blues at FMG Stadium in Hamilton. Conditions for this game look mostly fine. Looking at the lineups for the Chiefs, not a lot of changes here. Looks like they kind of loaded up the bench a little bit. Wallace Satiti, he is not starting. Simon Parker gets the number 8 jersey. Satiti's on the bench. Josh Lord's also on the bench. Naitoa Akoi, he gets the starting position. So not sure what's going on there. Something interesting is happening there. For the Blues, I mean, they're pretty much full strength outside of those season injuries that they had to guys like Offa and Derry. Guys that they could have back who would be nice are maybe Cam Christie to come in at number 6 and Stephen Perifetta at 15. So they have Adrian Choate and Corey Evans, both players who have had a decent amount of game time this year. As for how this game's going to go, I mean, look, the Chiefs are massive favorites, but if you look at the two games these teams played this year, they were very early in the year, round 1, and then maybe in like round 5 or something. Chiefs won both of them, but they were pretty close. Like, it was 11 points in round 1 at Eden Park, but it certainly felt a lot closer than that. Then when they played in Hamilton, I'm pretty sure it was only like a 3-point game. So, and both of these games, they both really turned when the Blues got carded. That have a guy go to the bin. In game 1, I think it was Mark Talia, and I can't remember who it was in game 2, but yeah, both times they had a guy go to the bin, and that seemed to be the inflection point for the entire game. So for the Blues, I mean, this has been a big problem for them all year. They are actually the most penalized competition team in the competition after only the Force, I believe. And I don't have the stats to back this up, but I mean, if I had to guess, I would say that all of these penalties are coming from ruck, because they get turned over extremely frequently, especially in their biggest losses of the year. They just end up getting turned over a lot. And I think the reason this happens is that they have such extremely slow ball. Again, I don't have the stats to back it up, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's the slowest ball in the competition, and that just really undermines their phase play. Like, their phase play is just so terrible. The ruck is constantly under pressure, and you're getting wobbly passes out of it, and the defenders are on top of the receivers straight away, and it all just compounds, and it slows the ball down even more. And you just end up having to kick, and then the Blues kick chase. It hasn't been that great this year either. It's been kind of mediocre. And look, with the Blues, like, the opposition team, they always know what's coming. They just know they need to man up physically, get low, just meet them head on in the collisions, and just deny them that go forward ball, those post contact meters. And because the Blues play so tight to the ruck as well, they always end up with this pile up of bodies every tackle, and that's what slows the ball down. And it just completely shuts down your game and phase play. Like, you can't use your backs at all because the ball they're getting is such low quality. And last week against the Waratahs at Eden Park, that was one of their better games of the year. And I mean, the backs actually looked good in that game, but if you watched it, like, the Blues, they scored almost exclusively from set piece strike plays, particularly from the scrum. The phase play was still really, really terrible. And the problem is, like, the Blues probably have the best scrum in the competition, right? They have the highest scrum success. I think they have the highest penalties from scrums as well. Like, it can be a weapon. The Blues scrum, by contrast, like, it's quite a strange one because it gets a lot of penalties for and against it. And that happens both on their own ball and on opposition ball as well. I think it's a lot better when Marcel Renata is there, which he is this week. Could have problems when he goes off, but it's really unlikely that the Blues are going to be able to leverage their scrum just to run these strike plays and run through the Chiefs like they did the Waratahs. I think one thing that the Blues will have going for them is that the way the Chiefs like to approach the Blues is that they do want to fight fire with fire and just try and outmuscle the Blues. And I think that's why these games have always been close, because the Chiefs have just backed themselves to play the Blues games, at least on defense. So yeah, that keeps the Blues in the game a bit. I think the real problem for the Blues, though, is that the Chiefs, they're just so much more dangerous. Like, once they get the ball in hand, that's ultimately what's gonna make the difference. And it's been a long time since those games at the start of the season, right? Like, the Chiefs have really kicked on. The Blues have not. Like, their phase play, it's improved incrementally from abysmal to very bad. And the Chiefs, they just look more and more dangerous every week. And I think they'll kick on in this game, but it will be close. I'm gonna say Chiefs by 7. And keep an eye on Jacobson at 7 as well. He will be the key man in this game, I think. Then the final game of the preliminary final round will be the Brumbies versus the Hurricanes in Canberra. Looks like good conditions at the moment as well. Looking at the lineups, Brumbies pretty much full strength. Charlie Cow got injured mid-season, never came back, but pretty much everybody else is here. For the Hurricanes, there was a bit of news during the week that Asafa Almoa would be out, or at least he was getting carted off the field at training, but turns out he's fine. He's been named in the starting lineup. Caleb Delaney's back as well, which is a bit of a boon. Also good to see Ponavai back as well, although he is on the bench. With Callum Harkin, interestingly, there's no 10 on the bench, but Ruben Love can always switch to 10 if something happens to Brett Cameron. Not full strength for the Canes though, they are still missing some guys. No Riley Higgins. Kenny Naholo got injured a while ago. There's no Wakali or Weary. Braden Yose, he got injured a few weeks ago, so definitely not full strength, but still the guys playing here, they have had a lot of game time. And I mean, look, how good was Peter Umanga Jensen last week as well? So yeah, very able replacements filling in those spots. And yeah, for me, I think honestly, this could be the game of the week. These two teams played maybe a month or a bit more ago, and it was an extremely frenetic game where the Canes came out on top in the end, and I felt like that game was where the Canes really turned a corner for their season. They just looked extremely dangerous, capable of playing at such an extremely high pace. And I don't know exactly how they do it. Like they have a very efficient forward pack, and I don't have the stats to back this up, but I feel like the Canes, they probably have the fastest ruck speed in the entire competition, and they just use that speed to play so expansively. They shift the ball wide a lot. I think they're second only to the draw for just shifting the ball wide. That they rarely play blindside. They don't play that game where you work the blind side and try and get defenders to come around before you make a move on the open side. No, they just move the ball constantly, extremely quickly. They do not want to get bogged down in any rucks, and that's what makes them so dangerous. Like, it's so hard for defenses to keep up with that sort of pace. But the real problem for the Hurricanes is that they create so much, but they're not nearly able to finish everything that they create. And you contrast this with the Brumbies, who do play a lot tighter, much more patiently. The challenge for the Brumbies, it's just going to be keeping up with the pace, because in that last game, like, they really struggled to do that. The Canes had so much more ball, and it just felt like the Brumbies were sort of just holding on. And when they finally were able to get position and territory, usually off the back of penalties, they were able to convert opportunities into points. Mostly it was just using raw muscle at close range. So yeah, if they can get into that red zone for the Hurricanes, they probably will be able to get over. But the key is going to be it's going to be about slowing the game down and not necessarily turning it into an arm wrestle, but just taking the speed out of that Hurricanes attack. If you can do that, then yeah, they won't have a lot going for them, and then yeah, you'll be able to take control of the game. Can the Brumbies do that in front of a big home crowd in good conditions? I mean, they are the favorites, right? Like, it's hard to go against a team in the playoffs in front of these big home crowds. But honestly, I'm a big fan of the Hurricanes this year, especially since that game. I just love the way that they're playing so much. I feel like the Hurricanes' fate is always in their own hands. It's just about whether they can keep it together enough to convert enough of what they create. Like, I don't think I've ever seen anyone really be able to shut down the Hurricanes game effectively. You just sort of, you try to disrupt it as best you can. You take your own opportunities, and then you hope that it shakes out in the end, that you were able to get more points out of it. But I do think the Hurricanes have got to where they need to be this season, just in terms of developing their game. Like, there's room for improvement, but no, I think they're definitely good enough, and it's going to be a battle, right? I think this will be close, but I do think the Canes will take it, but I'm only going to give it to them by 3 points. Anyway, guys, that'll do it from me. Let me know what you think about these matchups and how you think they're going to play out. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your week, enjoy the games on the weekend, and I will catch you in the next one.